The state government has labelled the federal budget a dud, saying Queensland has missed out on infrastructure spending to southern states. But the Premier has her own battles with a fresh backlash from regional voters over recently passed tree clearing laws.
There was no warm country welcome for the Premier at Beef Australia in Rockhampton. These protesters upset at the passing of tree clearing laws last week. Still, Anastasia Palaszczuk kept her promise to attend. But the Treasurer had an easier morning and had her own protest over the federal budget.
It is a budget where Queensland gets the crumbs.
About $5.2 billion has been set aside for infrastructure here.
$5.2 billion worth of infrastructure spending for the state of Queensland is not crumbs.
It equals one project that Malcolm Turnbull has promised for Melbourne.
Of that, $1 billion has been set aside for the M1 with extra lanes between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. That's about 50% of the total cost for planned works. The state government was hoping to split it 80-20 instead.
And for these projects to get off the ground, they have to happen on the state government credit card.
As promised, there's also $390 million for the upgrade to the Sunshine Coast rail network, plus $170 million for the Cunningham Highway and $300 million for the Brisbane Metro, a high-frequency public transport system for the Brisbane CBD.
One of the big issues we get from small business is that people can no longer get to work. So it's time for holes in the ground where infrastructure is concerned.
There's additional top-ups for the Bruce Highway too, but the RACQ points out some of the infrastructure funding will be staggered out in years to come.
While the money is directed where RACQ would like to see it, is all about smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of promises that depend on the government being re-elected.
And there's not a cent for the Cross River Rail.
We absolutely need a second heavy rail crossing across the Brisbane River.
I'm calling on the Premier and Jackie Trad to put their toys back in the cot and start working with the federal government.
Regional towns are set to benefit with more investment in training rural doctors and nurses, but it could take time to boost numbers here and around the country.
There's a deficit right now of around about 1,000 to 1,500. So we would certainly like to see as many of those doctors come our way as possible.
While industry, business and transport groups had all been hoping for more this year, some agree there needs to be better cooperation between the state and federal governments to get the ball rolling on the most crucial projects. Josh Bavis, ABC News, Brisbane.